Good evening, everybody. Welcome one and all to the Don Lemon Show, Lemon Live at 5. We're so glad that you can join us. We're going to get straight to it because we have breaking news on a number of different stories today, all related, I believe, to what I call Epstein derangement syndrome, that he's trying to do anything, many of them, that he's trying to do anything to distract from that story. But the breaking news story that we have first is that Pam Bondi has sent a letter to the Justice Department asking for a grand jury to take a look at evidence sent to her by Tulsi Gabbard for potential election interference or Russia hoax that somehow affected Donald Trump's chances of becoming president or his presidency. It is all very convoluted, and we will get to that in a moment. The other story that we're following you, this is a breaking news story. It's coming to us out of Texas. Here's the breaking report starting on Fox News.
Texas House Democrats will not be returning to their home state, despite Governor Abbott's warning that they could face removal from office if they are not back by 4 o'clock Eastern time today. Instead, they just announced a press conference at 7 p.m. And where are they? In Warrenville, Illinois, is where those Texas representatives will be speaking from, just about an hour outside of Chicago this evening around 7 o'clock. They've been in Illinois. They've been in other states. They're protesting this GOP effort to redraw the congressional map. We know that both sides, Republicans and Democrats, are pretty good at getting very creative in carving out these lines. The Texas governor feels this is a legitimate move. The president supports it as well. We'll see where this whole thing goes. We'll be watching.
Okay, so they're doing that because over the weekend, the Texas House, they staged a dramatic quorum break, fleeing the state. They're trying to block a Republican-led congressional redistricting plan. That plan is supported by President Trump, Governor Abbott. It aims to carve out 5 additional GOP-leaning U.S. House seats ahead of the 2026 midterms. As I told you, there's a lot to get to. And the man who knows all about this story, and I'm sure the Obama story as well, is renowned Houston Chronicle correspondent, reporter, Chris Tomlinson. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for having me on, Don.
So what is going on here? What is this? Because the Republicans are saying this has to be done because it's racial redistricting. The Democrats are saying you're trying to jerry-rig and gerrymander when you're not supposed to be doing it. And this is that they're trying to pull a fast one, not that it is illegal. So what's happening?
Quite simply, the Republicans in Texas are trying to disenfranchise several million Black and brown voters in order to guarantee or hope to guarantee that Donald Trump has a Republican majority in Congress in 2026. You know, they're citing different court cases, but fundamentally that's what it comes down to.
Okay, so listen, there are a couple of things that I want you to pay attention and respond to, because we have been listening to some of the folks who have been speaking out about this, and there have been a lot of people who have been talking about this. This is what Greg Abbott has been on multiple times. I believe he's on Fox News, and he's saying, he's saying, we're going to do what we can to arrest them. And I want to play his remarks, and I want to see what you think about it. Here it is.
The second thing is far more serious, and that is what these Democrats have done. Just a small fraction of them were needed to break a quorum, and that small fraction is holding hostage legislation in the state of Texas, where we will be able to provide assistance and reform for all of the victims of that horrific flooding that we've had in the state of Texas. Our fellow Texans are being let down and not getting the flood relief they need because these Democrats have absconded from the responsibility, and I believe they have forfeited their seats in the state legislature because they're not doing the job they were elected to do.
Governor, let me.
Okay. Does that square with what you are saying there?
No, absolutely not. Governor Greg Abbott is perhaps one of the most craven politicians in the United States today. To somehow say that victims of the tragic flooding on July 4th are not getting aid because the Democrats have left the state is just profoundly wrong and incorrect.
I am told that there's this sort of special session, or I don't know how you would qualify or classify. There's a special session, right, that he's calling for. I saw a lawmaker on One of the news channels today saying that they didn't call this for the flooding to help victims. There's so much going on, but this was the express reason. And for him to use that excuse is just a flat out lie.
It is. The Texas legislature only meets for 140 days every 2 years. It went sine die. It closed out its regular session on June 2nd. The governor called the legislature back 2 weeks ago to address marijuana, and THC sales in Texas. That's what he called he called the special session for. Then he added flood relief. And then finally, he added the redistricting after President Trump demanded it. So this is not only about flood relief.
It's not only about flood relief. Okay, one more from Governor Greg Abbott that I want you to respond to, Chris.
You said in your statement that you put out today to all of them, in a letter to them, you said, in addition to abandoning their offices, these legislators may also have committed felonies. What is the felony? What are the penalties for this?
So very simply, it would be bribery if any lawmaker took money to perform or to refuse to perform an act in the legislature. And the reports are these legislators have been they sought money and they offered money to skip the vote, to leave the legislature, to take a legislative act. That would be bribery. And so the facts will have to come out. But I think based upon comments made by legislators themselves, they face a possibility of facing bribery charges, which is a second-degree felony in the state of Texas. There's one way to cure that, and that is if they get back to the state of Texas and make quorum today at a hearing that we have at 3 o'clock, they can cure themselves of any quid pro quo that would subject them to potential bribery charges.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Democrats are responding. You'll hear from that in a minute. But Chris, what do you say?
Obviously, the Democrats are fundraising off of the political conflict that Abbott has created by demanding midterm redistricting in a way that is completely unfair to most Texans. The bribery charge doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a bit of a stretch.
Okay. Democratic lawmakers. These are Democratic lawmakers that I want you to hear from. They are here in New York meeting with Governor Kathy Hochul. They're out there. So I believe they're in Illinois. They're in New York. And I think some are even in California. But I want you to hear from some lawmakers that are in New York. Here it is, or at least one.
I'm a lawyer. A part of my practice is criminal defense work. There is no felony in the Texas Penal Code for what he says. So respectfully, he's making up some shit. Okay? He's trying to get sound bites, and he has no legal mechanism. And if he did, subpoenas from Texas don't work in New York. So he gonna come get us how? Subpoenas in Texas don't work in Chicago. He's gonna come get us how? So let me be clear. He's putting up smoke and mirrors. And I'm hopeful that the media doesn't follow that.
She needs to run in 2028, but I'm just saying, go on.
No, Representative Jones has got it exactly right. It's an absurd allegation of bribery. This is just maximum warfare politics, which is what the GOP practices these days.
Yeah. Democrat. I want to let's hear from another Democrat. Slamming Abbott's, and he's no, that's someone else. This is Representative Tallarico explaining about breaking quorum. Here it is.
This is State Representative James Tallarico from Texas. If you're seeing this video, my Democratic colleagues and I have just left our beloved state to break quorum and stop Trump's redistricting power grab. Trump told our Republican colleagues to redraw the political maps here in Texas in the middle of the decade to get him 5 more seats and protect his majority in Congress. They're turning our districts into crazy shapes to guarantee the outcome they want in the 2026 elections. If this power grab succeeds, they will hang on to power without any accountability from the voters. But Texas Democrats are fighting back. We're leaving the state, breaking quorum, and preventing Republicans from silencing our voices and rigging the next election. We are not fighting for the Democratic Party. We are fighting for the democratic process. And the stakes could not be higher. We have to take a stand.
Okay, and then here he is one more in an interview.
Would it make sense for Newsom to move now? wouldn't mutually assure
Can you pause, please?
destruction.
He's trying to, by the way, let me just preface this. He's trying to get the governor of California to act to help. Governor Kathy Hochul is helping out the folks who are in New York. And I think he's trying to get Governor Gavin Newsom to act. Here it is.
Require Texas Republicans recognizing, or I guess national Republicans recognizing, that something will happen rather than just talking about something happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Texas Republicans are doing it. They have passed this map out of committee, so they're moving. And I think blue state governors should move as well. And so if there are listeners to this show who live in a blue state, particularly a blue state with a trifecta, a blue House, a blue Senate, and a blue governor's mansion, please call your elected representatives and tell them to respond, tell them to act. We have to stand up to these bullies. You know, it's appropriate, Sam, that we are in the land of Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln actually broke quorum as a state senator in 1840 by jumping out of the window of the Illinois state capitol. Thankfully, I didn't have to jump out of any windows yesterday.
Okay. So what do you make of that? He's saying they're doing it because they're fighting for the democratic process. Governor Hochul here in New York faced a question saying that they're fighting for democracy, but I guess the reporter or whoever asked the question that said, you're fighting for democracy by doing something that's undemocratic. What say you to Tallarico there?
So it's bringing a knife to a gunfight. California and New York are the two largest Democratic states. Both have independent commissions that draw nonpartisan political maps. Texas is the largest state that has a legislatively drawn map that is highly partisan. So when you look at who's going to represent us in Congress, Democratic states are sending a balanced slate of people who represent the width and breadth of the population, of their populations. Texas is, 46% Democrat, and under this legislation, it would be 80% Republicans representing the state in Congress. So, it is anti-democratic, but it's also an unfair contest.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you hear from. I have all these things. I want you to respond to it because this is a story that everyone is following, but you're close to it. And we happen to be in New York, so I want to play the New York governor. Here's what she is saying about supporting the people of Texas, the lawmakers in Texas, and the people of Texas. She said, and she's saying it's not just about Texas. This is about democracy. Here it is.
Why would it be unfair to say that New York Democrats are abandoning good government and good democracy in an effort to save democracy?
Well, that's an interesting question. But if that's what's called for, I will put saving democracy as my top priority at any cost because it is under siege. Just like those who put on a uniform to fight in battles across the ages. For centuries, we've stood up and fought. Blood has been shed. This is our moment in 2025 to stand up for all that we hold dear and not let it be destroyed by a bunch of renegades in a place called Texas, which I respect these people, but we've had our battles with them, the Attorney General, the Senator. We know who we stand with. We stand with the people of this country.
Yeah. Okay, so she's having to respond to that, and I'm sure a lot of Democratic governors from states all across the country will be put on the spot like that. What do you make of her comments, sir?
It makes sense. Before I became an opinion writer for the Houston Chronicle, I spent 20 years with the Associated Press. I covered a dozen elections in 20 countries. I've seen every form of vote rigging and election engineering that's possible. And the way we draw districts in the United States is how we rig elections in the United States. And we've, until 2019, when the Supreme Court decided that it was okay to draw partisan political districts, we had a fairly fair system. But since then, we've seen states like Texas take the lead in drawing lines that are unfair to the voters and will result in a rigged outcome in Congress.
Interesting. Wow. Now, here's the Republican side outside of Texas. This is Fox News. Larry Kudlow warns against the Texas redistricting effort by the Democrats. Here it is.
There's issues here. This is about the Voting Rights Act, and this is about the Equal Protection Clause. There's going to be an argument here all across the country. It's not just Texas, and it's not just Texas Democrats. The Justice Department is saying that this was a racial district gerrymandering that was done earlier and needed to be overturned. It's not easy to figure this out. I just made a note here. There have to be large, compact, and politically cohesive districts. When you look at the map, Louisiana was the one the Supreme Court looked at. But Texas, when you look at the map of these districts, they're not large, they're not compact, and they're not politically cohesive. So I'm saying that the Justice Department is saying to Texas, you're going to have to redo your districts because you're doing racial gerrymandering, and I agree with that. How it comes out, let them fight it out, and it's stupid for them to go to Illinois. But there is a serious issue here, and you're going to see it probably in 10 or 12 states across the country.
We're going to see it in California next.
You'll see it in California, that's correct. I think you're going to see it in New York as well.
Yeah, that is an interesting interpretation of the Voting Rights Act and the Equal Protection Act. But I mean, go on. What were you saying?
No, it's absurd. It's an absurd interpretation of the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed 60 years ago today, that ended extreme partisan gerrymandering to protect the rights of people of color and minorities. When he talks about racially drawn districts, they are racially conscious districts that guarantee that people of color have an opportunity to elect the candidate of their choice. What the Texas Democrats are saying is, if you vote for a Democrat and you're black or brown, you're not going to get a chance to vote for your candidate of choice anymore.
Where does all of this end? I'm not sure. That'll be my last question to you, perhaps. But first, I want you to see this, because this is a person that has garnered probably I believe the most attention from Democrats over the last year or so, and that is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. And she was out rallying the people of Texas today. Here it is.
Let me tell you, if Texas goes through with this, guess what? California has a response. And we are calling on every single other Democratic state that has tried to do things the fair way. You need to wake up and realize that these people don't care about the law. They don't care about the Constitution. All they care about is their billionaires and power. It is time to return the power to the people. We will not go silently into the night. We will fight you with everything that we have, and you may win because they are cowards. I served with these people. I know that they are cowards right here in the House. So you may win this battle, but let me be clear. You are not going to win this war.
Okay, Chris, look, you know her, you covered her, I'm sure. As I'm listening to her speak, if all the Democrats rallied and got that fire in their belly and they were all cohesive, this might be the moment that actually changes things for Democrats if they could get it all together. I don't know if you feel that way, but you have covered Jasmine Crockett. Now she is a national Democratic star, and she's out there rallying folks.
I agree. The solution to this problem is for Democrats to start winning elections, right? It's about they need to stop relying on the courts to protect them. They need to stop relying on lawsuits to find justice. They need to convince people to vote for them. And the way the districts are drawn in Texas, they're all going to be plus 10 Trump. But in a wave election, you can wipe out a 10% lead. So I expect these maps will become law, and then it's going to be up to the Democrats to mobilize the people the way Representative Crockett is trying to do, to win elections and change and create a fairer system.
This is just one more thing that I want to play for you, because this is why they're saying that there's somehow bribery, because they believe that the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, that he is paying for them, because I think they face a fine of $500 a day, right, if they're not there.
That's right.
Right. Okay. And so they're trying to say that is a bribe, right, being offered for him perhaps to pay their bills or whatever it is. I'm not sure if he is doing it or not, but this is him, and you can respond after you hear from him. This is him responding today in an interview saying that we need to fight, his words.
From your vantage, in terms of what you're able to do in Illinois, are you willing to fight fire with fire here and respond in a commensurate way if indeed we see Greg Abbott engage in a partisan gerrymander in Texas?
Well, I appreciate the question. I'll begin my answer by saying I've been on team fight since I first got elected in 2018. I really believe, we have to make choices right now about whether you're going to be on team fight or team cave. And the Republicans are using frankly, everything, whether it's cheating, breaking the law, trying to do things that I think are non-traditional. And we Democrats can't live by the old rules. We've got to live by the rules. But we've also got to react and fight. And so when I think about what they're trying to do in Texas, and by the way, they're also trying to do it next door to me here in Missouri, next to Illinois, and other places. I think, historically that's, midstream redistricting was not something that we Democrats would do. But
okay, so you get the point, but I think he's making my point when he says that it's Democrats have to fight. I mean, this could be a strange gift for Democrats if they play it right.
It's possible. It's possible.
It's possible. I know.
But
you sound like
Democrats have a history of disappointing, right? So they've got to start behaving like a real political party. Yeah. Which we're still waiting on.
Okay, so Chris, you cover this, and this is your bailiwick. This is your what you do. So now what happens? Is it just a wait and see? Do you think that, because how long I guess they can do this for a while. So what's next?
We have 2 weeks left in this special session, and that's going to be $459,000 worth of fines on the 51 Democratic lawmakers. That special session will end, and the governor will immediately call another one. And he will keep calling another one until November. The odds of the Democrats holding out until November, which is the deadline for registering candidates to run for election next year, is pretty slim. I suspect these maps will become law and they will end up in court. But as I said, under the current Fifth Circuit and U.S. Supreme Court, there's no reason to believe that these maps will be thrown out. So, yeah.
Even with all of that Pritzker money, you still think that they won't hold out until November?
Well, who knows? Maybe, but they'd have to stay away from their friends and family and their jobs. Remember, these are part-time lawmakers. They have day jobs, so they've never held out for more than 60 days.
Maybe some of them have worked from home. You never know.
You never know.
Chris Tomlinson from the Houston Chronicle. You were so great to have on. I'd like to have more conversation with you instead of just having you respond to folks. I'd like you to come back on and you and I can discuss things where we're just having a straight up conversation.
Anytime, Don. Anytime.
But thank you for coming on. Chris Tomlinson from the Houston Chronicle. What a great guest we had. So thank you to him. And you're going to hear from other people, and then we're going to tell you about the breaking news that just came in about Barack Obama and folks in his administration being indicted. Pam Bondi has sent a letter to a grand jury to investigate. First, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude, journals, screen, detoxing, and it can get overwhelming. But how do you know what actually works for you? That's where therapy made all the difference for me, having a real conversation with a trained professional, not just scrolling through endless advice online. It gave me clarity and direction when life felt loud. So BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 5 million people served. The app has a 4.9 out of 5 rating from over 1.7 million reviews. And I get it. It's convenient, it's flexible, and you can switch therapists at any time until you find the right fit. So if you've been thinking about therapy, give yourself the space to talk it out with BetterHelp. Get 10% off with your first month at BetterHelp.com/DonLemon. That's BetterHelp.com/DonLemon. Support comes from Shopify. When I started the Don Lemon Show, it was just a vision and a lot of what ifs. What if I couldn't pull it off? What if nobody listened? Well, Shopify helped me turn those what ifs into why nots. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses worldwide and 10% of all US e-commerce. We use it for our own show merch, and it makes everything simple, from beautiful, ready-to-go website templates to AI tools that help with product images, descriptions, and even discount codes. And when you're ready to grow, Shopify helps you find your customers with easy email and social media campaigns, plus award-winning 24/7 support when you need it. So if you've got a dream, turn it into a reality with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/lemon. That's shopify.com/lemon. Thank you very much to our sponsors. Now back to the program. Okay, so this is the breaking news that we discussed before. But as we were getting ready to stream to you live this evening, this happened.
Well, good to be with you. This is coming out of the Justice Department. Fox News can confirm that Attorney General Pam Bondi today signed an order directing an unnamed U.S. federal prosecutor to take evidence to a grand jury relating to an alleged conspiracy to tie then 2016 candidate Donald Trump to the country of Russia. Now, Fox News reviewed the one-page order just hours ago signed by the Attorney General. A source familiar with the probe confirms this as well, while a DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on this report of an investigation. Fox is told Attorney General Bondi is taking the referrals from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, quote, very seriously. The spokesperson says that Bondi believes there is, quote, clear cause for deep concern, end quote, and a need for the next steps. Now, this move, Will, comes just a couple of weeks after the Director of National Intelligence, you see her right there, Tulsi Gabbard, sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department regarding what she says proves there was a conspiracy to undermine Trump's candidacy and later his first term in office. Now, to be clear today, there are no charges that have been filed, no indictments. This is incredibly early in the process. What we have here is taking evidence the Justice Department believes it has to a grand jury to secure an eventual indictment or indictments. We don't know exactly where the grand jury will meet. We don't know who will go before the grand jury, and that's by design, because grand juries determine if there's enough evidence to indict, and grand juries are secretive in the American legal system, so it's normal not to know all of the answers. Again, the DOJ declining on any comment regarding this investigation. But, Will, big news, this was signed by the Attorney General Pam Bondi today to take this evidence of an alleged conspiracy to a grand jury with the hope to get an indictment or multiple indictments. Well,
all right. Okay, so listen, if you watch the Don Lemon Show, if you are part of the Lemon Nation, you know that I said I believe that he will do it because he wants to do anything to distract away from Epstein and from what is happening, his reality, especially what's happening with his governance. So I want to bring in now Charlie Warzel. Charlie Warzel is a staff writer for The Atlantic, and he's the author of its newsletter called Galaxy Brain. Charlie, thank you for joining us. I was watching you back in the green room, your facial expressions, as you were watching the Fox News reporter. What was going through your head? Because I had when I first saw it, there were a lot of things that were going through my head, but I actually got to say them out loud, like, what the fuck? But go on.
Well, first of all, I didn't know that I was being watched there, so that's always good to know. Good to know that you got eyes everywhere. Honestly, there's a lot of events like this that happen, like where you have to try to triangulate and understand whether what you're seeing is some kind of like pseudo event, right? Some kind of spectacle that is just truly made for TV, made for news, made for people like us to talk about, made for people like Fox to talk about, things that, it's almost wrong to call it like a distraction, right? Because it is a real thing.
You think that's downplaying how the danger of it, right?
Exactly. You don't want to downplay the danger of it. Yeah. But at the same time, too, this is like the amount of information we have about this. Obviously, it's a developing story, but the amount of information we have about this is vanishingly small, right? So the rest, what happens in this environment is you're left with speculation. So you're left to speculate, what could happen, what might the details of this grand jury thing might be, how far could the Trump administration choose to take this, who might end up getting, enveloped in this, whether would they really and truly go after the former president? Is there a kind of, Trumpian immunity that then applies to him in this situation? And we're left talking about all of this stuff, which has or hasn't happened yet. In many cases, it hasn't happened. And we're not paying attention to a lot of the things that, are really damaging to this administration right now, right? Like grocery store prices, like the Epstein, saga that's going on, what potentially is happening with Ghislaine Maxwell, all these things that are going on in his presidency right now. And we're not really, paying attention to it in that way, because we're speculating on this thing that hasn't really happened. So it does, in that sense, it seems like.
And we don't even know if it's going to happen, right? If you listen to the reporter, this is very early on, and, we're going to see what the grand jury does. I think if it comes to them having to try to do it, that they will do it. But that's not really the point, I believe, Mr. Warzel. I believe the point is just to sully Barack Obama and just to get it out there, right? So that, in the zeitgeist, so that his folks will go, yeah, Barack Obama did do this. He should be arrested. And that is enough to get people, to get the media off of it, and to talk about Obama, to get him off of Epstein, and to just, I guess, sort of bring the MAGA coalition back together after they sort of fractured over this whole, release the Epstein files thing.
One way to look at
I'm
this,
not saying it's just a distraction. I agree
Right.
with you. We shouldn't downplay it, but you know what I mean.
But one other way to look at this too is just as fan service, right? Like the whole, like the Russiagate stuff, there is a universe of people who are hyper online, who have been, involved in basically creating these, whether it's the 2020 election or the 2016 election, involved in these very niche and also convoluted plots, right? That there's always this group of enemies in the deep state undermining Donald Trump, undermining him. Even when he wins, there's a problem, right? And these things have gone on for so long. This Russiagate theory is so wild, the cinematic universe, and so expansive, that what he's doing essentially is just continuing to feed it. This is like playing the hits, right? His base is very upset about this Epstein thing. And so what does he do? He goes back and he says, well, remember, he's playing Freebird right now.
Yeah.
He's doing that.
That's a good one. It is the hits. But let me tell you what's different. And to your point before this one, why this is more serious, I believe, than people may realize. It's because he controls pretty much every lever of the government right now, right? He is defying federal judges, so he controls the judiciary. The Supreme Court is stacked in his favor. He is defying the legislative branch. He doesn't really care what Congress or senators say. He's going to do what he wants to do anyways. And then, of course, he has the executive branch. So I think it's more dangerous now because he could actually try to get people to move them into in positions where they would actually consider, going to try to arrest Barack Obama. You saw the video, the AI video that he put out there. Right. It would be difficult considering, I believe, first they'd have to impeach Obama, right? Because he's still, he's not an impeached president. They'd have to somehow try to take away his presidency because as a president, Donald Trump, thank you very much, he would be immune to prosecution. So then why all of this? But I do think that they would try to do it.
I mean, I think that the entire ethos of this administration is, if the last administration was a lot of trial balloons and empty talk, what this is trial balloons that are actual they're actually there to gauge what can we do, what can we get away with. I think the way to think about this administration is starting in late January, early February with Doge. They realized that if they go and try to do these things, if they want to break the government or break all the norms, they have a lot more power than they did last time around, or a lot more willingness to use this. There's no one really there to check, in the administration, to check these whims of Donald Trump. In many cases, everyone is there just to encourage those whims. So there are no guardrails to this. Yeah. And I think that it makes these conversations, like you say, it gives them a weight and a heft to this, because there's really, it is a foolish thing to look at this and say, well, he's not going to go there. Right. I think you have to be prepared for pretty much anything. I mean, they tried to destroy the entire federal government in week 3 of the administration. And
they may have succeeded. We'll have to see. But Charlie, where have you been all my life? I love your energy. We like having you on the program. This is Charlie's latest piece. Let's put it up. That is in the Atlantic. Said nobody, not even Trump, can control the Epstein story. We are on the same page with this one. Welcome to the era of late stage conspiracism. Late stage conspiracism. Now, I call it Epstein derangement syndrome. Okay. Because that appears to be what Donald Trump has right now. Let's go and read a little bit of what Charlie Warzel over at The Atlantic wrote in here. He said, Donald Trump helped create a monster. Now he'd like for everyone to ignore it. Yes, he's the one that started the whole Epstein thing. After years of sounding dog whistles and peddling outright conspiracism to work his supporters into a lather about global pedophile rings, Trump is telling those same people to move on. Earlier today, when you wrote this, Trump posted on Truth Social that the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy, a pillar of the MAGA cinematic universe, is a hoax, and went so far as to disavow the past supporters over the issue. Okay, so we see what's happening here. And then you said he went on to play the hits, and basically he's Freebird right now. But also, beyond that, he's bringing in, he wants to, Barack Obama, Oprah, Beyonce, and then he says Taylor Swift, she sucks. And now, what's her Sweeney? What's her name?
Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney is now the thing that you also wrote. The discourse is broken. How did a jeans commercial with Sydney Sweeney come to this? So now he's mentioning Sydney Sweeney. Make it all make sense. I don't know how you tied it all together, but boy, we are in crazy land.
So, late last week I wrote about the Sydney Sweeney jeans ad. For those who are blissfully unaware, essentially there's an American Eagle ad, as it's on the screen there. The tagline is Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. It's a garden variety dad pun, jeans, blue jeans, the jeans that you inherit. There's a line about traits being passed down. There are some people who saw this, commenters on TikTok, some people who, saw this and said, blonde, blue-eyed woman talking about great jeans in this moment. It's reading, some people compared it to like straight Nazi propaganda. Other people said, this is actually just like not reading the moment very well, right? But there are some people on the internet who found this to be upsetting to them or offensive in some way, right? But what ended up happening is those things get cherry-picked by members of right-wing media who are constantly looking for examples that the left or liberals or whatever are deranged, right? That they cannot handle the world around them, and that they look at a jeans ad and start crying, and it's the whole like snowflakes thing, right? And that triggers this cycle where you have a lot of people who are, say, hang out on X all day, a lot of journalists, a lot of media people who see this and go, okay, it looks like there are some people who are really upset about this, and then the right is using this for this thing. Let's round up all the discourse, as I sort of have done here just now. Let's round it all up, and then we'll basically point this as like two sides of an issue. Everyone's crazy, right? And I highlighted this as part of this cycle. We call this the discourse online, right? There's discourse every day. There's main characters. There's all kinds of people who are always perceived to be fighting and very mad at each other. And the culture war extends to absolutely everyone and everything, right? But if you go back and you really look at some of these examples, it seems that everyone is just talking past each other in every possible way. The people who are upset about this ad and who have genuine frustrations about it are not furious necessarily at, say, Sydney Sweeney, right? Maybe they're mad at American Eagle, but they're thinking about this in the context of this broader moment of the mass deportations, the people being sent to, a makeshift Florida gulag, people being arrested on the streets, this encroaching feeling of, white resentment and racism in the country. That's the context that this is dropped in. So it makes sense that someone could read that ad and say, I don't, this makes me feel bad or scared or whatever, right? And that can be an extreme minority of people. And then you have this group on the right that is just looking for this rage bait, right? They're looking for things to get their group very mad about. And then we create this spectacle as if something huge has happened, when in reality, it's a very small thing. And so the right has seized on this, including now Donald Trump, in order to play up this classic idea that, the left is full of snowflakes, that they're losing the culture wars, that the culture is skewed towards them. And, at the end of the day, this again is something that's very helpful to them when they're trying to run away from this Epstein situation. And so that's how I tie, the whole thing together. But it's a great example of the fact that the internet has created these social media information systems where everything is weaponized. We're all just yelling at each other about things that are, we don't even know if they're in proportion. We don't know how many people are mad at this. There's not a single mainstream Democratic politician who's upset about Sydney Sweeney or who has come out to condemn the ad or anything like that. And yet somehow, the left and Democrats have to answer for this because there are some people that are mad about it on TikTok. It's just all very weird and out of proportion.
And the weird thing is that a lot of people are getting their news from TikTok. It's a whole crazy, messed up world, Charlie. But I agree with you 100%. I have to tell you, look, I'm just, maybe I'm a boomer. I'm not really a boomer, but they would call me a boomer because when I was like, Sydney Sweeney, who is that? And, I saw her in White Lotus, but I didn't even remember her name. So, but that's me. I don't really go to the movies or any of that stuff. So I had no idea who she was. And then my team was like, no, Don, she's like the cat's meow right now. And I'm like, well, is it because I'm old? Is it because I'm gay? I'm not looking at, she's hot. Your boob. I'm not doing that. I don't want to be creepy like Trump was this weekend about Caroline Leavitt. I'm just saying she's a beautiful woman, but that's not it. I just she wasn't really on my radar.
Well, she's also there. There are people. I heard somebody say this on the internet. That there's always in every generation has like a buxom blonde woman who no one can be normal about, right? Like there's always someone in that kind of discourse, and she is a bit of I guess a lightning rod in some ways for this kind of culture warring because she's from Spokane, Washington. She kind of has this like outdoorsy, vibe there. She fixes up cars. She's very confident in herself. Like she's able to sort of, she's comfortable flaunting her own image in ways that a lot of other people might not be. And so there's this weird way that the right has tried to kind of co-opt her. And whereas, the left has tried to say, well, she's not. And there's this whole cycle around trying to figure out.
There is. I do want to talk about it because Donald Trump is actually posting about it. Okay. Can you give me 2 minutes to do something? Just give me 2 minutes. Okay. Stand by because I want to get a word in from our sponsors and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what Donald Trump is saying about her and then just where we go from here. And I'll let you go. First, a word from our sponsors. Support for the Don Lemon Show today comes from the Wild Alaskan Company. When was the last time you truly trusted the seafood you brought home? I used to wonder about quality and sustainability until I tried Wild Alaskan Company. Their fish is 100% wild caught, never farmed and frozen right off the boat to lock in taste, nutrients like omega-3s. So personally, I'm a big fan of their sockeye salmon. Rich, flavorful, perfect on the grill. Every order supports healthy oceans, sustainable harvesting, and fishing communities. Plus, it is delivered straight to your door in perfectly proportioned cuts. Try it risk-free, 100% money-back guarantee. You get $35 off of your first box of premium wild-caught seafood at wildalaskan.com/lemon. That's wildalaskan.com/lemon for $35 off. Support comes from lean. There's a natural ingredient from India called caralluma, and it's an edible cactus that works as an appetite suppressant. Doctors used it along with other rare natural ingredients to create lean. It's a weight loss supplement designed to help control appetite, maintain healthy blood sugar, and even help your body burn fat for energy. If you've got a summer weight loss goal, but you don't want injections, this may be the closest thing to those benefits without all the needles, okay? I like that it's natural, it's created by doctors, and it's designed for real results. So get started with 20% off. Just use the code lemon20 at takelean.com. That's lemon20 at takelean.com. Now, these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Thanks to our sponsors. Okay, thanks to our sponsors. And there's something weird happening with my camera right now, so I'll take it off. Can you hear me, Charlie? Charlie, can you hear me?
I got you.
Okay, good. I don't know what's going on with my camera. I'll try to fix it. Okay, so Charlie, let's talk about this. Let's put up the tweet. There's a tweet from the president, or I don't know if he would call it a tweet or a Truth Social or whatever, where he loves Sydney Sweeney. He said that she's a conservative. Do we have that, guys? We don't.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay, and he believes that she's a conservative. It has been reported that she, is from Texas or lives in Texas or whatever, was registered as a Republican. So you said everyone is trying to figure out what her politics is and to see what, I guess how they could sort of put her in a box or whatever. But he says Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. It's for American Eagle and the jeans are flying off the shelves. Go get them, Sydney. On the other side of the ledger, then he talks about the Jaguar ad, which is just, quite frankly, bizarre to me. I don't know what's going on with that. But as I say, again, can you please make this make sense? Because obviously, I look online. No, but here's the thing. I look online and I see people. I say, why can't people just have conversations on social media and it not, turn into something? Of course, that is what social media is about. Everyone is like assholes. Everyone has an opinion. So why on earth are people getting upset about a bunch of people on social media? By the way, I was at dinner with a lot of people, a giant group. This company invited me to a big outdoor dinner, and there were probably 300 people there. To a person, people of every different ethnicity said, I don't really give a shit about this ad. I don't get what it is.
Well, I think that's where sort of most people fall, right? Like, and I don't mean that to downplay if people were offended by this, like that's, they're right and all that, right? But this notion that the platforms that we have outsourced all of our communication and political discourse onto, that they are completely out of proportion, right? They flatten all these different arguments. Social media, I've often said, gives an outsized advantage to the most shameless actors and the loudest voices, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that is what you tend to see. You tend to see these people who, are very upset and outraged because social media likes outrage. And you tend to see these people who are outraged that other people are outraged or know how to farm that outrage for their own attentional and political advantage. And so what you end up seeing is like two poles in this argument. And really, most people genuinely don't care, right? But these conversations are about very important things, right? Like, as I said before, the context of people being upset by this is not that they are snowflakes. It's that they've been watching the news for the last year, is that they've been seeing what the Trump administration has been doing, the flagrant disregard for laws, for people's well-being, for parts of the Constitution. That is the thing that people are reacting to here. And yet we sort of shrink it down. We, wrap it around these pieces of pop culture and this discourse. And what it ends with is the president of the United States, that Truth Social post that was just up on the screen for a while, that is the ramblings of grandpa, on his iPad from the couch. Like, it doesn't really make sense to people unless they have spent all this time in this universe. Like, he's the president, like we bombed Iran not long ago, and he's like caring about Sydney Sweeney and her political registration and this idea. I mean, it's not worth being surprised anymore because this happens all the time. But at the same time, it's just like you have to step back, and it's just it's kind of ridiculous. And the fact that we all have to talk about it because he's the president of the United States is another level of ridiculous.
You have to write about it. And that is a whole nother level of
great, man.
ridiculousness. Yeah. Let me get you to respond to this. This is the Midas Touch. Our friends over at the Midas Touch says, reporting that Trump is calling people saying that he didn't kill Epstein. Now, I do have to tell you that I've had Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, on the program, and he said, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that Donald Trump, obviously, he was in power. He was the president, and all of a sudden, my brother turns up unalived or dead in a prison cell. And he said he would not be surprised. So basically, he is insinuating that Donald Trump could be or might be responsible for the death.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that because we're so far through the looking glass on all of this stuff. I mean, one thing that Trump has done, I think, by indulging in these conspiracy theories, by pulling every piece of niche internet ephemera and whatever and making it part of our politics, it's really like it's changed the way that we all talk, the things that we think about, the stuff that becomes news. I mean, the history of the Epstein thing went from this is a very real story to this is a conspiracy theory to this is a conspiracy theory mixed with actual conspiracy to now this is just like United States politics. Like this is just sort of like what people are going to be campaigning on. And like, I know in my industry, there's been just such a rush from people who didn't really know too much about this thing to start like navigating the fever swamps of the internet to try to pull apart, what is real, what is not. This conspiracy won't go away, but also like so much, it has kind of the Trump of it all has kind of dragged us into all of this. We're all now sort of wrestling in the mud.
But how do you? My question is though, how do you find a way to cover it correctly? Because we should have learned our lesson from 2016, and we should have learned our lesson from 2020, and we should have learned our lesson from 2024. But here we are again in this sort of Trump melees. I don't know if it's a melees or just a bombardment of just falsality. That's a word I created. Of fakery. It's not reality at all. But at a certain point, you have to say, okay, this is absolutely ridiculous, and perhaps we are the ones who are giving this life by reporting on it as if it is something real. But then you can't. He's the president of the United States. This is a conundrum.
Yeah, it is a conundrum in the sense of like, let's take the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle thing. In that, the whole purpose of me writing about this was that I felt like it was a very good example of the way that the internet is distorting, right? This is, like I said, there's a group of people on this one side who have a strong reaction, and then it just becomes this huge cycle that the Democrats have to answer to. And I think that what media organizations need to do is there's this tendency from the early days of social media of like dipping into the stream, into the feed, and just pulling things out and trying to present them as if they are a representative sampling of stuff. There was a story by, I won't name the news outlet, that took one of the, commenters and people who are upset about this Sydney Sweeney ad. And this woman is just a random person with 119 followers on the internet. That's the equivalent of, of just hearing someone on the street saying something overheard and, printing it in the newspaper, right? Like that only happens when there's the right context, when the person means something to the situation. So I think what needs to happen in these types of situations, if we're actually going to like create responsible dialogue in some way about some of this stuff, sometimes you have to just talk about Epstein, right? Because it's like, it's part of the politics, it's part of whatever. But these little culture war things, I think the media just needs to do a better job of not letting the embers turn into this brush fire, not like giving it the oxygen it needs to spread, because sometimes there is a culture war issue, and then sometimes there isn't. Sometimes people are making them up because they're good for attention and political points.
Well, you have to figure out what's real and what's not. And I got to tell you this, Charlie, if you can take Charlie off for a while, but you can still see, I got to go tend to you can't, can you see the folks who are really important in my life right here? And that is that fella and another one who are on the couch fighting. I don't know if you could hear them. So I got to go tend to them to make sure that 6 o'clock is dinner time.
Makes sense.
And they're ready to eat. Charlie, I love your writing. I love your energy. We would love for you to come back. You're a great addition to the Don Lemon Show, and the folks in the Lemon Nation loved having you here. So thank you, brother. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Keep up the great work. Thank you. Charlie Warzel over from the Atlantic. Wow, what a great guy. That was really fun. And he's right. We have to figure out like what's real and what's not. But we are through the looking glass. So I don't even know what's real and what's not. So anyway, everyone, here we are. I want to just make sure that you understand, because of folks like Charlie, what they do over at the Atlantic. Over at the Atlantic, they're reporting like I believe it should be done, without fear or favor. And they're like independent journalists right now. So it is important for you guys to support independent journalists and people who are doing real journalism. So, and we do that through your memberships and your subscriptions. And also we always tell you to hit the thumbs up, okay? And through your support. We do not have the big corporate sponsors behind us. So if you like what we're doing, if you don't like what we're doing and you want to make it better, that's even more of an incentive, a motivation for you to support us. So make sure my dog is hungry. Make sure you get a membership. They're very reasonable. It's cheaper than what you pay for coffee every single day. And you can just support us. So check out our memberships. If you go to donlemon.com, you can become a member. Just go to donlemon.com and click on that. See the watch button at the top? That's the YouTube. And then all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. Subscriptions are free. Or you can hit join and you can show them what the memberships are. The memberships are very reasonable. And even the folks at the top tier of our memberships, they get to be on the program like no other program. These folks get to be on, and not just a one-off every now and then. They get to do it on an ongoing basis. So those are the memberships. Go and join. Also, thank you for those who are gifting memberships. Because of your generosity, you're allowing people to become members of the Don Lemon Show. So, and thank you to our subscribers. Also, make sure that you hit that thumbs up and that you continue to support us. It means the world to us. So welcome to all of our new members. Also, folks have been asking me about this glass I had. I see folks in some in the comments. This is on the, let me do that so you can see it. That is on our website and in our merch store. And of course, we have our other stuff as well. So you can check it out. Okay. So my doggy is barking. He's ready to go eat. And I got to go feed him. But by the way, we have a members only, speaking of members, we have a members only show right after this, which I will do, and feed my dogs at the same time. You get behind the scenes. I will take you into my life and you will see, and we will also talk about issues and news, and we can discuss things on the private stream that we can't do here. We can, but we can't do it in the same way because we can be extremely personal. And we like to talk shit about people in there. So anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you check out, by the way, D.L. Hughley and I will be at City Winery on August 12th, starting at 7:30. So you can go to, the link is on our main page on YouTube, or you go to donlemon.com, you can figure it out, or just go Google City Winery DL and DL. And I think I told you guys this morning that I got a low ticket alert. It may be sold out by now, but we're thinking of adding a second show if it does sell out. So the night after, but we shall see. Okay. So as I always tell you, you can be informed without being inundated. Don't sit in front of the television all day and alerts and listen on the radio, whatever it is, and just become outraged. I call it outrage porn. So until I see you, for those of you who are not going to join our private chat, till I see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time for Hot Topics, turn the TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.